Welcome to the deep dive. Today, well, we have a monumental task ahead of us.
We certainly do.
We're taking this stack of source material and synthesizing 4,000 years of history, philosophy, scripture, all to explore the deep foundations, the defining ideas of Judaism.
Yeah, the goal is really to give you, the listener, a clear, connected understanding of this, well, foundational tradition.
And it's essential, right? I mean, why dedicate a deep dive like this?
Well, that's what our sources really emphasize. If you look purely at the numbers, you've got maybe 14 million people worldwide. It seems small, almost.
But the influence is just huge, isn't it?
Utterly disproportionate. It's kind of twofold, really. First, the overwhelming contributions it's made to philosophy, to religious thinking. It's the root system for Christianity and Islam.
A wellspring.
Exactly. But second, and this is a tragic thread we have to confront, the sources are clear. No other religious group seems to have endured such prolonged, such intense persecution, just based on their beliefs.
And that goes back millennia, right? Ancient times, right up to today.
It really does, spanning millennia.
So that sets the stage. Chronologically, we're talking roughly 4,000 years back, making Judaism the first of the three great monotheistic religions. It really defined the path.
And that journey, interestingly, it doesn't start with Adam and Eve or those universal creation stories our sources sometimes focus on. It starts more specifically.
With an individual.
Yes, with an individual and a specific promise. We begin around 2000 BCE with Abraham, the patriarch, the one who really established the Hebrew faith.
Abraham is this radical pivot point then, living in Mesopotamia, surrounded by polytheism. Many gods was the norm.
Right. And he receives a revelation from one God, a truly monotheistic idea at the time.
And this God tells him, leave home, go to Canaan.
And this instruction, this moment, it establishes the fundamental relationship that defines the religion. It's the covenant.
The covenant, like a contract?
Sort of, yeah. Think of it as a solemn binding agreement between God, the creator and governor, and Abraham's people, his descendants.
And within that covenant, these two core ideas emerge. The first one is the chosen people.
Yes, and the sources note this is probably one of the most misunderstood concepts in religious history.
Right. So how did our sources define it? Is it about being superior or something else?
No, it's absolutely about responsibility, a partnership, really.
Yeah.
God chose Abraham and his descendants, yes, amid all that polytheism.
But it's reciprocal.
Exactly. Humanity, in turn, has to choose God every day in their actions. So it doesn't imply superior status. It's more like a partnership to be guardians, witnesses of creation.
So less a prize, more a heavy divine job description.
Precisely. A significant obligation. And the second big idea tied to that covenant was the Promised Land.
Canaan, later Israel.
That's specific territory.
Okay, so now we fast forward several hundred years maybe to the Mosaic period. Sources put this, 1700 to 1280 BCE?
Roughly, yes. And Abraham's descendants, they've ended up in Egypt and are now enslaved.
Which brings us to the second great pivot point in the story, Moses.
Moses. Born a Hebrew slave, but, ironically, raised in Pharaoh's own court. He's chosen to lead the people out.
The Exodus, that mass departure, it's the defining story of redemption, isn't it?
Absolutely central. And it's marked by this incredibly crucial theological moment, the revelation at the burning bush.
Right. Moses asks God's name, and the answer is, well, complex. Ahai, Asher, Ahai.
Often translated as, I am in the process of becoming, or maybe, I will be who I will be.
Which is fascinating. It's not a static name like Zeus or something.
Exactly. It suggests something active, evolving, a God in relationship with humanity, a God of action, of presence, not just some abstract principle.
And that moment is immediately followed by the events that lead to Passover, Pesach.
God tells the Hebrews, mark your doors,
Yep.
lamb's blood, so death, the 10th plague, will pass over your homes.
It's an act of faith that kind of seals their salvation at that moment.
It is. And once they cross the Red Sea, or the Reed Sea, as some scholars say, into the Sinai Desert, the covenant is renewed profoundly.
On Mount Sinai.
Wow!
With the Ten Commandments.
Yes, the absolute, non-negotiable laws detailing how the people need to live to keep their side of the bargain with God and how to live justly with each other.
So the community settles in Canaan, first led by these charismatic tribal leaders, the judges.
Right.
But eventually, around 1000 BCE, they establish a monarchy. King Saul, David, and then Solomon.
King Solomon. His reign brought stability, sure, but crucially, the construction of the first temple in Jerusalem.
And for almost 1,000 years, that building was the single center of Jewish worship. Sacrifice, pilgrimage, everything focused there.
He was the anchor. And around this time, we also see the prophetic tradition really maturing.
It's important to get this right. A prophet wasn't just predicting the future, were they?
Not primarily, no. They were people receiving and delivering God's message, often warning the kings, warning the people, if you break the covenant, disaster will follow.
A moral warning system. And that concept becomes central to Christianity and Islam, too.
It does. Shared across all three Abrahamic faiths.
Unfortunately, those warnings, they came true. Which brings us to this period of, well, shattering destruction. The fall and exile.
Yes. First, 721 BCE, the Assyrians scattered the northern kingdom Israel. Then the big one, 586 BCE, the Babylonians captured Judah, the southern kingdom.
And they destroy Solomon's temple.
Destroy the temple, and take the leaders captive to Babylon, the Babylonian captivity.
That must have been catastrophic. A faith centered on that building those rituals. To lose it, it's an existential threat.
Completely. They were forced to figure out how to practice their faith in exile without the temple, without the land.
And this necessity, this pressure, it led to incredible innovation, didn't it?
It drove three crucial, really revolutionary developments, things that transformed Judaism into something closer to what we see today. Losing the central temple forced worship to become decentralized.
So if they couldn't go to the temple, where did they go?
They created local places for communal prayer, for study, for gathering. These became the synagogues.
That's a radical shift. Worship moving from, like, priestly sacrifice in one spot
to scholarly discussion and prayer, led by teachers, potentially anywhere the community gathered.
And those teachers, that's the second key development. The rabbis.
Exactly. These scholarly interpreters, they rose in prominence. Their job was to take complex scripture and make it understandable, practical for the average person living in exile.
Makes sense.
And third, while they were in captivity, hope kind of crystallized into the belief in the Messiah.
The anointed one.
Yes, a great king descended from David, who would eventually deliver them from oppression, restore the temple, bring them back to the promised land. This idea became a vital anchor through centuries of being ruled by others.
Now, even after the exile technically ended, most Jews actually remained outside Judea, right?
That's right. This dispersal is the diaspora, like sowing seed across the world. And then another huge influence arrives. Alexander the Great conquers the region in 332 BCE.
Bringing Greek culture, Hellenization.
Yes, Hellenization. And this led to something remarkable, the translation of the Hebrew Bible into Greek.
The Septuagint.
The Septuagint. Suddenly, vast numbers of Greek-speaking Jews, and later non-Jews, could access the scriptures. It fundamentally changed the religion's reach.
But stability never seemed to last long. Just as things settled, the next big power arrives. Rome.
Rome. Following a Jewish revolt, the Maccabean Revolt, which Hanukkah commemorates.
Right, 164 BCE.
The Romans eventually conquered the region in 64 BCE. And another Jewish revolt in 66 CE led to utter disaster.
The destruction of the Second Temple in 70 CE. And this time, it was final.
Final. It was a moment where Jewish civilization could just have collapsed. But the sources really highlight the foresight of one figure, Rabbi Yohanan ben Zakkai.
What did he do?
He managed to get permission from the Romans to relocate the Sanhedrin, the Jewish governing council, to a town called Yavne.
Just moving the council. How did that save things?
Because it allowed Jewish life to be preserved by redefining it. It fully established rabbinic Judaism. The focus shifted definitively.
Away from the temple priests, who are now gone. Yeah.
Onto the scholars, the rabbis. The focus became the interpretation of the law, both the written Torah and the growing body of oral interpretation and tradition.
Okay, let's talk about that theology then. The absolute bedrock of Jewish belief is the oneness of God, right?
Absolutely central. God is immaterial, indivisible, unique, the creator and governor of everything.
And this is captured in that core declaration, the Shema. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one.
The quintessential statement of faith. And much later, about 1,000 years after that Second Temple destruction, this core idea was philosophically synthesized by one of the greatest medieval Jewish thinkers.
Maimonides, around 1135 to 1204 CE, sometimes called the Second Moses.
A huge figure. He codified the 13 Articles of Faith. And the sources note 3 are considered absolutely non-negotiable. God is one, God is perfect unity, and God is immaterial. His work provided this incredibly important philosophical framework.
So if the covenant is the agreement and the oneness of God is the premise, how do you actually live the covenant? How do you fulfill your side?
Through action, through demonstrating devotion, study, prayer, yes, but especially through good deeds. And this brings us to the mitzvot.
A mitzvah, usually translated as a commandment from God or just generally a good deed.
Right. The tradition counts 613 of them in the Bible, 248 positive ones, things you should do, and 365 negative ones, things you shouldn't do. Following these is the practical daily expression of keeping that covenant.
And to guide you in following the mitzvot, you need instruction, which leads us to the sacred texts. The most sacred is the Torah.
Yes. And while it's often translated as law, you mentioned earlier the deeper meaning is more like revelation, teaching, or instruction. It's the 5 books of Moses, Genesis, Exodus.
Right. And that Torah is the first part of the larger Jewish Bible, the Tanakh,
Yeah.
which also includes the prophets and the writings.
Correct. But for day-to-day living, for understanding the practical application of the law, the truly definitive work is the Talmud.
The Talmud, it sounds massive.
It is monumental. It's like the ultimate operating manual for Jewish life. It has layers. First, there's the Mishnah. That's the compilation of early rabbinic teachings on the law, codified around 200 CE.
Okay, the core teachings.
And then, built on top of the Mishnah, debating it, expanding it, commenting on it, is the Gemara. It includes legal discussions, ethical teachings, stories, everything.
So Mishnah plus Gemara equals Talmud.
Exactly. The two together form the Talmud. And the Babylonian Talmud is generally the standard authority for Jewish law today. It's vast.
So the community gathers for practice in the synagogue. You mentioned it's sometimes called shul.
Yes, shul, emphasizing its role as a school, a place of learning, not just prayer.
And for formal worship to happen, you need a minyan, right? A quorum.
Correct. Traditionally, 10 males over the age of 13, though in Reform, Reconstructionist, and some conservative communities now, women are included in that count.
And inside the synagogue, the Sefer Torah, the Torah scroll itself, is kept in the Holy Ark.
Reverently kept there. And leading the community, you have the rabbi, the scholar, teacher, counselor.
And often the cantor.
Yes, the cantor, who leads the congregation in prayer through chanting. It's often very beautiful.
But maybe the most important ritual, the one that unites almost everyone, is the Sabbath. Shabbat?
Absolutely the cornerstone. It begins Friday at sunset, lasts till Saturday night, set aside for rest, rejuvenation, prayer, family, community. No work allowed.
Celebrated with lighting candles, the Kiddush blessing over wine.
And that special braided egg bread, challah, it's a time to reconnect.
And then there are the dietary laws, kashrut, keeping kosher.
Right. These laws serve a double purpose, according to the sources. They help establish Jews as an identifiable group, maintain distinctiveness. But they also embed ethics into daily life, like humane slaughter methods, reminding people of their responsibility towards creation. Humility, too.
Let's touch on the major festivals. The High Holy Days kick things off, Rosh Hashanah,
The Jewish New Year. It starts a 10-day period of introspection, of repentance.
culminating in Yom Kippur.
The Day of Atonement, the most solemn day of the Jewish year, marked by a 25-hour fast, intense prayer. And the sources mention the sounding of the shofar, the ram's horn, during Rosh Hashanah. It's like a spiritual wake-up call.
And the festival, probably best known for its lights.
Hanukkah, the Festival of Lights. It commemorates that Maccabean victory and the rededication of the temple, celebrating the legend of the oil lasting 8 days.
A story of resilience.
Very much so. And then there's Pesach, or Passover.
Commemorating the exodus from Egypt.
Right. Celebrated by eating unleavened bread matzah and avoiding anything leavened, chametz, to remember how quickly they had to leave Egypt. No time for bread to rise.
And life cycle events. We have circumcision for boys on the 8th day.
A sign of the covenant. And then the coming-of-age ceremony, the bar mitzvah for boys around 13, and bat mitzvah for girls around 12 or 13 in non-Orthodox traditions. They become responsible for observing the mitzvot.
Weddings, too, have distinct traditions, like the chuppah.
The wedding canopy, yes, symbolizing the home the couple will build together, and the famous breaking of the glass underfoot.
Why is that done?
It's a powerful symbol. A reminder, even at a moment of great joy, of hardship, of the destruction of the temples in Jerusalem and the fragility of life.
Now, you mentioned rabbinic Judaism solidifying things, but in the last couple of centuries, especially after the Enlightenment in Europe, new challenges arose. Assimilation versus tradition?
Exactly. That tension led to the modern branches or movements within Judaism. They're largely defined by how they relate to the Torah and tradition.
So first you have the Orthodox.
Orthodox Judaism accepts both the written Torah and the traditional oral law as essentially divinely given and unchanging for 3,000 years. They strictly observe Shabbat, Kashrut, traditional gender roles in worship. This also includes Hasidic Jews, the Hasidim, or pious ones,
Hmm.
who often emphasize ecstatic prayer, good deeds, and humility, sometimes over purely legalistic details.
Okay, then at the other end of the spectrum,
You find Reform Judaism. Originating in 19th century Germany, it views the Torah more as a human document, inspired by God perhaps, but allowing successive generations to reinterpret its truths in light of modern knowledge and ethics. They introduce services in the local language, mixed seating for men and women, really embrace change.
and in the middle.
Conservative Judaism. It tries to find a balance. It recognizes the human element in revelation and the development of tradition, but it aims to conserve traditional Jewish practice and law where possible. Services are mostly in Hebrew, for instance, but they might allow driving to synagogue on Shabbat, or have female rabbis and cantors, which Orthodoxy wouldn't.
And there's a newer branch, too.
Yes, Reconstructionist Judaism is the newest and sources say fastest growing, particularly in North America, founded on the philosophy of Mordecai Kaplan. Their view is that Judaism is an evolving religious civilization.
Their motto sums it up.
Kind of. Tradition has a vote, but not a veto. They respect the past, but aren't bound by it in the same way conservative or Orthodox Jews might feel they are.
So that covers the internal landscape. But we have to return to that external pressure, the persecution. The sources detail a long, painful history of anti-Semitism.
It's deeply rooted and complex. Reasons given include Jews being perennial outsiders, often without a homeland for centuries. Their different customs, clothing, diet making them seem strange.
And religious conflict.
Yes, tragically, certain interpretations of the New Testament led some Christians to blame Jews collectively for the death of Jesus. They were often scapegoated for national calamities, plagues, economic downturns.
And the whole issue around money lending in the Middle Ages.
Right, often barred from other professions, Jews were pushed into finance. This sometimes led to resentment and accusations of cheating, fueling negative stereotypes that lasted for centuries.
And all this historical hatred tragically culminates in the 20th century. First, with the rise of a political idea, Zionism.
Launched formally by Theodore Herzl in 1897, the idea, the movement, advocating for the establishment of a Jewish homeland, a return to the Promised Land, Zion.
Driven partly by rising anti-Semitism in Europe.
Absolutely. And then the ultimate horror. The show. The Holocaust.
The calculated industrial-scale murder of 6 million Jews by the Nazis and their collaborators between 1933 and 1945.
6 million. It's estimated that was 1/3 of all Jews alive in the world at the time. An unimaginable catastrophe.
And the source material suggests the Shoah provided this undeniable, terrible impetus for the Zionist dream to finally become reality.
It did. The world conscience was shocked, support grew, and in 1948 the declaration of the modern state of Israel was made. A moment of profound triumph after unspeakable tragedy.
Even here in Canada, a place often seen as a haven. The history isn't spotless, is it? Jewish communities have been here a long time. The first synagogue was in Montreal, 1768.
A long history. But the sources acknowledge Canada's past is stained by prejudice too. Most infamously, the St. Louis incident in 1939.
Jewish refugees fleeing Nazi Germany on the ship St. Louis refused entry, sent back to Europe, where many later died in the Holocaust.
A heartbreaking moment. And there were active hate groups here too, like the National Unity Party in the 1930s, spreading anti-Semitic propaganda.
But it's important to balance that. Modern Canada actively combats this, right? Laws against hate crimes, the official observance of Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Remembrance Day.
Yes, there are ongoing efforts to remember and to fight prejudice.
So when we look back over this entire 4,000-year deep dive, what really stands out? What defines this journey?
For me, it's an incredible resilience and intellectual rigor, from Abraham's initial questioning through the rabbis, Maimonides, centuries of scholarship, and maybe most of all, that unwavering commitment to the covenant through everything.
That commitment seems key.
It really is. And the sources emphasize something interesting here. While Judaism does have beliefs about an afterlife, its primary focus isn't really on the world to come. It's very much on this world.
On the present.
Yes, on the ethical obligations of the covenant right now. Actively demonstrating justice, pursuing knowledge, doing good deeds in the here and now. That's where the main emphasis lies.
Which brings us to a final, quite pointed question, drawing from issues raised in our sources. Given this strong Jewish focus on fulfilling commandments and pursuing justice in the present world, How might this religious perspective inform today's difficult public debates?
What kind of debates?
Specifically, the ongoing question in Canada and elsewhere. Should society continue to pursue and prosecute suspected war criminals, Nazi collaborators, or others who are now very elderly who've lived quiet lives for decades in the country?
Ah, that's a tough one.
It is. It puts that ancient demand for justice, for accountability for past actions, right up against the realities and perhaps limitations of justice in the present moment for someone near the end of their life.
A really profound thought to leave our listeners with, connecting that deep history and theology directly to very complex, very current ethical and legal challenges.
Indeed. Well, we hope this deep dive has offered you a clearer roadmap through this incredibly vital, ancient, and resilient tradition.
We hope so too.
Until next time on the deep dive.